So I'm working on something at the moment. I don't know if you know, like this common tree snake enclosure has been sort of in progress for a long time, and I don't want to give too much away.
I was going to ask you about this because you kind of
yeah,
alluded to it, but you don't have to say
yeah,
more than you're comfortable with. But I'm definitely curious about what you're doing.
yeah. Look. It's. I'm working on something like I love the bioactive. Like I love bioactive. Like I think it's the future. I think eventually we will work bioactive out for everything, no matter how big it is.
Yeah.
But I think that I'm no expert. I'm just going pure observation, and like a lot of what's going on in the bioactive like realm doesn't pass the eye test for me. So you've got a lot of people in the States and stuff that are keeping bearded dragons in bioactive enclosures that look like they're at the bottom of the veggie garden. Whereas they're very much red stand and they get about as arboreal as climbing a fence post. So I also think that the amount of water and light required to grow plants is detrimental to the actual animal that you're keeping in there. I look at my angle-headed dragon enclosure and I have to pump that thing full of light to get the plants to grow, but they are a shade species. They're not higher than 2.5 meters in the tree, so they're under a canopy at all times. And right now they're being bombarded with light. So I look at it and I just think it's not right. Mm-hmm. And these misting systems, like I was having a lot of, so when I got into Bioactive, I built the angle-headed dragon enclosure and filled it with plants and had it for like 6 months or something without ever putting an animal in it. And I want to say that to people, like so many people are like, I'm going to build this. It's like people want to build their own enclosures and that's great. Like, please do that. That's the best thing you can do for your hobby, like for the future of your own hobby is to learn how to build enclosures. Yeah. But a lot of people like bang this enclosure together and then they're so excited before it's even dried yet, they bang their animal in it. Yes. And I just like, I don't think that's right. Look, I do that too, but I've built enough now that I know that it's going to be okay. I'm saying if it's your first one, maybe you should be a little bit more, err on the side of caution and don't hesitate from building an enclosure and then just not putting anything in it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like test it out first. If you want to try some bright new idea, why not just do it in the enclosure and not have some animal be the guinea pig? Exactly. Really it's going to work, So when I did Bioactive, I thought, okay, I'm going to get into this, but I'm not a green thumb. I don't know how to keep plants alive. I do now, but at the time I just said, okay, well, I'm going to see what I can keep alive. And the answer was nothing. Yeah. So like, and I was finding that I had to, my lifestyle, I was struggling to water that thing manually every day. So I bought the biggest mist thing you could buy, and I set it up and I thought, right, this is going to solve all my problems. And I had it misting a couple of times a day and my plants were still dying. And I was thinking, well, what's happening here? And I was checking all the roots and all the roots were bone dry. So the amount of water you actually have to pump that thing with so it hits the leaves and trickles down and actually soaks the roots is insane.
Because it's very much an aerosol coming out of the Mist King, right? So you're sort of just puffing it into the air, and to actually water the roots, you have to leave that thing on for a long time.
Exactly, and you're just soaking all the animal and everything that's in there, and you can have like a moist environment as long as that animal can get dry, and that's the biggest problem is the size of our enclosures. We've got to try and make all these little micro habitats, an area where it gets high humidity, but an area where it can also get completely dry. And this is where a lot of what I see of what's going on just doesn't pass the eye test for me. Like, it seems that we're so set on achieving this bioactivity goal, to hell with the actual, like, we think we're doing right by the animal, but I think we're doing right by fitting into our Facebook groups that ban you for saying, hey, is this right? It's like, no, we're bioactive. You have to do it this way. If you scrub your wood, even if you're putting in a bioactive, you're banned. And I just look at that stuff and I just think, man, like, you're so, like, it's like it's a bioactive cult. Yes. And I think that they're wrong. Like, Sorry.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, people do get sucked into thinking that because they're using the term bioactive, that their care is automatically better, when you could have a giant laundry list of issues with your husbandry, but just because you have 7 isopods rolling around through the dirt, you think that your bearded dragon's in great condition, when you might be really missing the mark.
And the other thing I see is like, oh yeah, I've got fake plants, but my soil is bioactive. It's like, well, newsflash. You actually need live plants in the soil to actually create the full cycle, because even those isopods are creating waste.
That's right.
It's really tiny waste, but it's still waste, so you actually need the plants to recycle those nutrients and then put it back into the soil. So a bioactive system is not complete unless it has live plants. Yeah,
I totally agree.
And that's not what the pages will tell you. And so back to what I was saying is that I'm working on a way of, I'm going to improve the Mist King system, essentially so that your plants are being watered at the roots, so the plants will stay alive without saturating everything.
Huh. That is really interesting.
So you can essentially water it as much as you like, but your animal's going to remain dry.
Interesting. And that actually helps with the humidity as well. So you have a test run. So I was just saying, like, that helps with the humidity as well, because you're actually saturating the soil's getting wet, but you're totally right that when you soak the entire enclosure, the humidity does spike, but it evaporates and dries so quickly, the actual humidity drops again right away. But you can actually have a dry upper canopy. If the soil is nice and wet, it's still going to be relatively humid without making the animal sit in a cold, wet corner of the enclosure.
Yeah, exactly.
So now you have a test that's actually working.
Yeah, it works. I just need to buy a few more things.
Interesting.
So yeah, it works. It's proven. I just need to get it. So, and the other thing is that, so part of what was going on with it is that the system that I had in behind the wall, it's all hidden behind the wall. It popped essentially and was leaking.